What's up, everyone? Bye week is just about behind us now for the Eagles as Season of the Fan Season 3 rolls along into week number 5. Of course, the Eagles come into week 5 at 3-0, one of the few undefeated teams left. The Baltimore Ravens lost today, so they're not in the circle of undefeateds anymore. I believe the Broncos won. The Patriots lost too, so they're out of that circle as well. And we'll see what happens with the Vikings tomorrow. Of course, we have to cheer for the Vikings tomorrow because they're playing the Giants. And it didn't go too well today. The two other teams in the NFC East, the Redskins, albeit it looked interesting for a while against the Browns, but they came back to win. I mean, it is the Browns. So, and the Cowgirls came back to beat the Chip Kelly 49ers. And, what can you do about that one? Good to see good old Chip doing his thing there in San Francisco the way he was here, too. That's good to see. He's their problem now. I know a lot of 49er fans probably right now are wishing that they had Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz, right? 49 cents? What do you think? No, you can't. We can't trade. No. They're yours. You have to keep them. So no, the teams did not do us any favors today, at least. Hopefully the Vikings do tomorrow. But you know what? It's not about the other teams in the NFC East. It's about the 3-0 Philadelphia Eagles. And I thought I'd do a little recap here so far of how the season has gone. Obviously, a lot of positives, not a lot of negatives. One of the negatives, though, is Lane Johnson. Probably be starting his 10-game suspension in Week 5 against Detroit unless there's some sort of appeal process still, and I don't know. I'd rather it just get out of the way. You know, let him do his 10 games and then come back at the end of the season. Hopefully the Eagles are still in playoff positioning at that point, and they'll get even better with Lane Johnson coming in at that point. But, we'll see. The Eagles, what else can you say? They've looked terrific so far. I mean, 3-0 is 3-0 is 3-0. And there were people who say they didn't play anybody for the first 2 weeks. And then you take a look at, them putting a thumping on the Steelers in Week 3. And that certainly turned some heads and certainly opened some eyes to what the Eagles are trying to accomplish. As we know here in Philly, we have 4 teams who are all in rebuilding mode, who all have young talent. And by the way, the Sixers can't win for anything, can they? I mean, they finally get the number 1 pick, and then now we won't be seeing him for the first 2-3 months of the season because he rolls his ankle or breaks a bone in his foot, I should say, on the last scrimmage of practice. We talk about practice. See, Allen Iverson had it right. He didn't care about practice, but he never got hurt in practice. We're not talking about game. We're talking about practice. Not a game. Practice. What are we talking about? Practice? Yes, Ben Simmons, please. Quick recovery to you. What can you do? But, yes, the Sixers, the Flyers, even though the Flyers made the playoffs last year, kind of more of a fast track for their rebuild. The Phillies, just finished off another season this year, 71 wins, not making the playoffs yet again. They haven't been in the playoffs since 2012. Of course, they had some great years there before that, but it's been a while since we've seen the postseason around here for baseball. And, of course, the Eagles. And the Eagles, going into this season, it looked like it was going to be a total rebuild. I mean, I kind of figured, going into this season, even with, Carson Wentz at quarterback to start the season, I thought there was a good chance they were going to win the first 2 games. I mean, you talk about Cleveland and Chicago. Not great opponents, and certainly winnable games, even though the Chicago one was on the road at Soldier Field. I thought they were very winnable games. I mean, I was nervous about the Pittsburgh game as the season got, when things got started, particularly how well Pittsburgh looked through the first 2 weeks. But I had hope going into that week because of how well the Eagles looked. and in particular how well not only Carson Wentz looked, but how well this defense has been looking. And you talk about going back to, before the season started, the offseason, the hiring of Doug Peterson, the first order of business that he did was to hire Jim Schwartz. And, we've been over this before, but, since it's kind of a wrap-up video for the first 3 weeks, I do want to reiterate this. I did say at the beginning of the season, before the season started, when I did one of my first Season of the Fan videos for this coming season, that I thought that was a great move. And I kind of hearkened back to when Andy Reid was hired, and his first order of business was bringing Jim Johnson in. And I'm not comparing Jim Schwartz to Jim Johnson, although they both share the same first name. But a hire of a very solid defensive coordinator when you're a first-year head coach is a big move. And it's the right move to make. I mean, it's like setting up a chessboard, and you want to put your pieces in place strategically, right, along that board. And it's all about making those moves. The moves that you make early on in the game help you win the game at the end. Not that I'm a chess player. But you can have that analogy with just about any sport, any organization. When you go into it, when you start an organization sort of fresh, the way the Eagles did, you have to be able to identify what direction your organization is going to go in. What pieces do you have to have in place to have success? And so the Eagles bring Howie Roseman back as GM. Chip Kelly's gone. Howie Roseman comes in. And right away, they get the coach in place, they get the defensive coordinator in place, the coaching staff. They make all those moves to go up to number 2 to draft Carson Wentz. Again, thank you, Miami. By the way, one of those players that the Eagles traded to Miami got benched this past week, and Byron Maxwell, so, there you go. And Cleveland, to move up to number 2 to draft Carson Wentz. Now, did any of us see Carson Wentz becoming this right away in the first 3 games of the season? No, because at the time none of us thought he was going to start because Sam Bradford was here. Well, they moved Sam Bradford. Carson Wentz gets the fast track. He gets to be the starter right away. Even though coming off the injury with the ribs from the preseason, not getting a lot of snaps in the preseason, not getting a lot of snaps with the number 1s going into at least up to that week. And then here he is, week 1, boom, first drive, touchdown. It's been nothing but great since. No turnovers. If the receivers can only catch the ball a little more, he may have a few more touchdowns on the season, but nonetheless, he's been great. He's been flawless. The defense has been great, and one of the reasons for that, obviously, they're not on the field as much as they were in the Chip Kelly era, where the offense was on the field for about a minute, and then the defense has to come back out there. In the second half of games, you saw the difference a year ago, the last few seasons with this defense, right? I know they had some injuries. Jordan Hicks goes down last season. That was a big blow. D'Amico Ryans was out. So they really were thin at linebacker, but you still saw the difference in the second half of games. And some of those blowout, losses, Arizona, even towards the end of the season when they lost to Washington in a big game at home, you just saw the difference. You saw how just gassed the defense was. And so far, and I know it's a small sampling, but 3 games, you're seeing the defense playing even better in the second half of games than they played in the first half at times. And it's really a welcome sign to see. The Eagles are dominating the time of possession. Their defense has played lights out. They have given up the fewest points of any team in the league so far. They gave up 3 points to the Steelers, who right now, last I checked, had 15 on the board against Kansas City. They're back to doing their thing, right? Played, tremendous on the road in Chicago. Tremendous at home. They've given up some plays, but again, as I said before, no defense is not going to give up a play here or there. But the bottom line is how many points do they give up? Particularly in the red zone. What do they give up? How many touchdowns do they give up? I think one thing that people need to realize is this defense has given up 2 touchdowns all year. 2 in 3 games. The other touchdown was scored on a punt return in Chicago. Steelers didn't have any touchdowns a week ago. That's something for me and I believe I can speak for the rest of Eagles Nation when I say that's something that I am really excited about. Because it's like I said before, we love a great defense here in Philly. That's one of the things that, you know, Eagle fans, have that as a calling card when you talk about some of their great players that they love. It's a lot of defensive players, right? I've said this before. Reggie White, Brian Dawkins, Jeremiah Trotter, Bill Berkey, the Chuck Bednarik, of course. I mean, generations of Eagle fans have had defensive players as some of their favorite players. In the last few years, we haven't had a great defense. It's been something that's been missing. And it's directly led to just some, particularly last year, just bad seasons. Nothing to really be excited about. Just a whole lot of craziness and just bad play. And, oh my God, what the heck is this? You saw the videos last year what I was making. And that was just a sampling. I mean, all Eagle fans the last few years, all these, guys and gals out there who are filming their video, professing their love for this team, and in the last few years, there's just been a lot of. So this is certainly a welcome change, a complete 180 from where we were sitting a year ago, particularly on the defensive side. We know how great Carson Wentz has looked so far. It's 3 games. And I know that the big talk after the and look, you must excuse us for being a little excited a week ago after that big win against Pittsburgh. But you hear the radio and people were talking about Super Bowl and NFC Championship game and all this, and it's a little early. I don't want to be one of those to throw the cold water, the ice water on people, but at the same time, it is 3 weeks. We're going into week 5. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. And I'm as excited as everyone, as all the other Eagle fans out there, because this has been just a tremendous start to the season, much different than what we had, and in a lot of ways unexpected. We didn't know what to expect going into this year, with a lot of new pieces in place, with a head coach, defensive coordinator, different people on the coaching staff, different players, rookie, starting quarterback. We just didn't know what to expect, and all these different moves that were made in the offseason, which was completely different than the Chip Kelly moves, mind you. We just didn't know what to expect. But I think as the weeks have gone on, the excitement levels continue to rise, and for good reason. We have what seems to be a very good franchise quarterback in place in Carson Wentz, who doesn't have a great receiving core, who doesn't even have, that one running back, like some of these other teams have, that okay, this is going to be the bell cow. Well, they've done it by committee, and I think that that's a good thing too. I mean, it shows depth at a position that going into the year we didn't quite know we had that much depth in. I mean, you talk about, trading DeMarco Murray in the offseason, which was the good move. You talk about, okay, Darren Sproles comes back, but he's another year older. Ryan Matthews is here, but at the same time, can he stay healthy? I mean, even now he looks a little dinged up, but, but enter Smallwood, enter Barner, young running backs who have come in and made plays, who have been a part of this offense. And that's certainly something that we weren't expecting going into this year. So it's a welcome surprise. I mean, Zach Ertz is out. He's out 2 of the 3 games so far, and they haven't missed a beat. I mean, the tight end play, Brent Selleck. I mean, Brent Selleck's like turning the hands of time back. He looks like the old Brent Selleck. He was missing the last few years. So, they were primarily just using him as a blocker. And he's a really good tight end. He's a solid tight end. He's one of the elder statesmen on this team. And it's good to see him get involved in the offense again. They have looked really good. Trey Burton coming in there making plays, young tight end. And people complain about the early bye week, but I do think it came at the right time because it gives chances for guys like Zach Ertz and Leotis McKelvin to come back from injury in Week 5. Both probably should start in Week 5 against Detroit. And we go into this game against Detroit. Look, Detroit's a 1-3 team, but honestly, I don't really know what to make of Detroit because at times they look really good on offense, and at times they look very sloppy. And I know they have some injury issues on defense. They're starting to get guys back and back into game shape. It could be a tough game. I mean, it could. I'm not going to lie about that. I don't take any game for granted. I know Detroit, is 1-3. The Eagles go into that game 3-0, playing pretty good. Of course, whooping up on Pittsburgh a couple weeks back. But at the same time, I'm not going to go into this game and just take it for granted and put an automatic W there. It could be a tough game. It could be. I mean, we've seen at times Detroit. They've moved the ball. They've scored some points. I love the way this Eagles defense is playing. But Matt Stafford, at times he looks like, a really, really solid. He is. He's a solid quarterback. He's a guy that picked this defense apart a year ago on Thanksgiving. I know they don't have Megatron there anymore, but still they have some weapons. And then, again, if they start, getting their guys, back on defense healthy, that could be, there's some names on that defense that can play. It is going to be another test, coming up for Carson Wentz and this offensive line, who will probably be without Lane Johnson. But Carson, to this point, has been unflappable. So we hope that continues. We hope the bye week, didn't kind of slow down the mojo, from the last few weeks. I think that could be one concern, going into this week. Is it a winnable game? Absolutely. I mean, Detroit, look, I mean, they lost the game today in Chicago. And you remember when we played Chicago, how easy the Eagles made it look to beat them. Well, Detroit goes in there today and they lose. Detroit's lost a few games. They're, it's early in the season, but you got to figure that, they're going to be itching for a win. They're at home. And Jim Schwartz is going back to Detroit, the former head coach there. So it's a big game for him. And it's a big game for those Lions who were still on the team when he was the coach, to try to play, well against him as a defensive coordinator. But, I think, I think it's going to be a close game. But I do think the Eagles can come out on top because I think the Eagles' defense will make plays and preserve a victory. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as easy as it was the first 3 weeks. It might be a closer game, but if the Eagles can continue to play their game the way they've been playing, and I don't see any reason why they couldn't beat Detroit. We owe them from last Thanksgiving. I see you, big baby. We owe your boys in Honolulu blue there. From a season ago, and one of the embarrassing losses for the Eagles last year was that Detroit game on Thanksgiving, and we certainly owe them for that. But it's gonna be an interesting game. Anytime you go on the road, it's gonna be tough. Detroit, as bad as they've looked at times, they've also looked good at times, and they're kind of the Jekyll and Hyde team right now. You don't quite know, even during the game, what Detroit team's going to be there. It should be an interesting game. Hopefully, like I said, Zach Ertz comes back, Leotis McKelvin comes back from injury, make some plays in that game, get them back in the lineup and back in the rotation. It should be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. I did miss them. I missed them this week. The bye week, particularly early in the season, it's week 4. It's weird to have a bye week this early in the season, but you know what you missed. Kind of sitting around watching other teams play, and I'm ready to get back to it this week against Detroit, and what should be a good game. Now the Detroit fans have to be introduced to Carson Wentz. And this Eagles defense, this new-look Eagles defense that's played just lights out so far, and hopefully they can keep it up. I'm not saying every game is going to be, the way it's been. I mean, obviously there's going to be times where they're struggling. We have to remember, this is still relatively a young team. They have played better than we thought so far, than we thought going into the season. None of us saw this. So that's a plus. A lot of them haven't played like their age would indicate. But at the same time, you got to figure at some point there's going to be some little rough patches in the road. But it happens to everyone. You know, it happens to everyone. I love the way this team has played so far. They've looked dominant on both sides of the ball. I mean, just, they're getting at it, and they're competing, right? There's that word again. They're competing. They're doing all the things that we missed in recent years. It's been tremendous. It's been rather unexpected in a very pleasant way. And I can't be more excited. Every week now it's like we have this renewed excitement. Every week now it's like, oh, what's Carson going to do today? What's this defense going to do? Who's going to make the big plays now? It's just, it's a far cry from where this was a year ago. And that's a great thing. So really much to wrap this up, and I know I usually do go long, but to wrap this up, through 3 weeks now, well, it's going to week 5, but 3 weeks that the Eagles have played, I mean, you can say nothing but positive things about how they've played and how they've coached, too. It's not just, I think that really does get lost, because we all talk about how great the teams, the players have played on the field, right? Well, they're being coached up to play this way, right? The game plans on both sides of the ball have been tremendous. And I think a lot of credit has to go to Doug Peterson, and a lot of credit has to go to that staff on the offensive side. And you look at the defensive side, of course, Jim Schwartz, and the job that they've done, kind of turning this thing around. This defense had talent the last few years, but they just were on the field too long. And, now you're seeing it with them being more fresh and ready to go. You see the difference it makes, and the playmakers on this defense are able to make those plays even in the second half, in the fourth quarter of games, where a year ago they were... Now they're fresh. Now they're out there making plays, getting big turnovers. In the second half of games, in the fourth quarter of games, where you have to have them, they've been doing it. I'm excited. I can't be more happier with the start. It's a long season, so there's a long way to go. I don't think that some of these other teams in this division are going to go away. So I think it's going to be a battle throughout the season. I really do. But I look forward to those games. I look forward to those games against Dallas and the Giants and the Redskins, because now it's like, well, our boys are going to show up and play. Not going to be any rollover games now. So, I definitely look forward to those. And like I said, it's exciting. And I know the rest of the, Eagles Nation here on YouTube have been, throwing bouquets at the team, too, through the first 3 weeks. It's a lot to be excited for. And, when you're a fan of these teams in Philly, yeah, just, it's nice to have this. Because we have a basketball team that just, just going to be a lottery team for how many years in a row. And then we have a baseball team that's rebuilding, and we have a hockey team that's rebuilding, and they gave us some excitement a year ago. They made the playoffs, but they did bow out in the first round. So this is, we love all of our teams. We love our Eagles. This is a football town first, and we do love all of our teams here. But this is a football town, and sometimes that, when you have seasons like last year, people can tend to think of it another way. But this is a football town. And, there are fan bases of other teams in the NFL where there might be another team in that town that takes top priority. Oh, in Philadelphia, it's the Eagles. It's always been the Eagles, and it will always be the Eagles. With all due respect to the other teams, this is a football town. And we love our birds, even though we're reminded all the time by their fans, you don't have a Super Bowl ring. Oh, well, you know what, go away. Because there will come a time where the Eagles do have a ring, and I think it will be sooner than later. And once that happens, I think some people need to deactivate their accounts on Facebook, because I'm coming. I'm coming. Anyhow, to wrap it up again, I can't be more excited for what this team has done and how they've looked on both sides of the ball. I'm a little worried, with the suspension of Lane Johnson. I know the offensive line. Look, the offensive line has played really well through the first three weeks. So other guys have to come in and step up. And, but our quarterback looks like the real deal. Our defense is certainly looking like the real deal. Our receivers just got to catch the ball a little more. particularly in the end zone. They got to catch that ball. Do your job, damn it. So anyhow, that's going to do it for me for this little wrap-up for the first 3 weeks of the season. Entering week 5 now, Eagles coming off a bye against the 1-3 Lions. Again, revenge on their mind from Thanksgiving of last year. The Eagles certainly haven't forgotten that game, so hopefully they can get some revenge and go to 4-0. My God. Imagine 4-0. Woo! Let's keep this undefeated thing going. It's going pretty good. Let's keep in mind, they didn't lose in the preseason either. Okay, so 4-0 in the preseason, 3-0 in the regular season. It's looking good so far. Let's keep it going. As always, go Birds, and I'll see you all in the next one. Probably do a little wrap-up after the Detroit game a week from today, and hopefully it will be another victory to talk about. All right, everyone, take care. And by the way, of course, got to wear the pink. Don't forget to wear your pink. It's October. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Big shout-outs to all of the survivors out there, and for those who are fighting the fight, hope it's a victory. Hope that's a victory, because that's the best victory of all. Let's not forget that. So let's wear our pink out there, guys and gals out there, and support. And I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.